For more on China's economy, I'm joined now by John Gong, a professor of economics at the University of International Business and Economics in Beijing. John, thanks for joining us today. Now, what's driving the improvement in China's services sector? Are you surprised by the jump in February's PMI number?
First of all, thank you very much for having me, Sally. What's driving the growth right now is clearly the recovery from the pandemic. The pandemic pretty much ended towards the end of last year and beginning of January. And I think by this time, the entire country is in a mode that somehow, this pandemic is totally behind us. Previously, all these service-oriented sectors that have been heavily affected by the pandemic are coming back strong. We're talking about the tourism industry, the railway, the flights, and the airline industry, the restaurant, the retail stores. I mean, all of these things are coming back in a very, very strong way. So I think another thing I want to remind people is that over the last 2 years, the aggregate savings at Chinese banks is at an all-time high. And I think at this time, people are taking money out of the bank, are spending like crazy right now.
And how is the manufacturing sector faring at the moment? What will it take to get the country's factories back on track?
The PMI data shows that it's still in expansion mode, albeit at a reduced rate compared to previous month. I think there are still challenges with respect to the manufacturing sector, especially when it comes to the exports. We're basically facing a kind of adverse environment in the global market. In the United States and also European Union all in sort of in recession mode right now. So inevitably, China's exports have been affected, which percolate down to China's manufacturing industry. So, there's some challenges, but I think overall, it's still in expansion mode. And I would still expect that the manufacturing sector, the industrial sectors, will still be pretty much growing, albeit at a smaller rate than compared to the service sectors.
So perhaps things are looking pretty good, considering especially the very difficult years of COVID-19. It could be described as a COVID glow. What are some of the challenges that China faces in this rebound then?
I think the speech delivered by Premier Li at Bao Forum, I think is we can find some good clue about your question. I think the question really is about China's development environment. Premier Li emphasized a couple of times the importance of peace. If you look at this speech carefully, count how many times he used the word peace. This is a priority for China right now, especially peace in Asia. We are in a overall global environment that is not so much peaceful and also full of uncertainties. But I think what's good, at least from China's perspective, is that at least in Asia we have peace. And he said that China is going to work with its neighbors and partners in Asia to safeguard peace. Which is vitally important for economic development. So I think that's a big challenge, and that I hope the country will stay on this course, laser focused on economic development, and then move forward.
What about crises that are developing, abroad, outside of Asia? Of course, the conflict in Ukraine. Does that present a new opportunity for China in any way?
Well, I think overall, this is actually a very good moment for Asia in general. Asia historically has been, very much advanced economically compared to the rest of the world. But for the last 200 or 300 years, it's sort of lagging behind. But I think it's coming back pretty strong right now. When you look at the economic growth projections throughout Asia, especially in Southeast Asia, they're all pretty, very rosy numbers, 4 or 5%. Across many countries. And I think in consideration of the issue you brought about, there's absolute peace right now here in Asia, Southeast Asia. The trade between China, the Northeast Asian countries with the ASEAN countries is booming. So I think it's a very good time. And I think it's a good time in a sense that relatively it's a very peaceful environment, and trade among countries are booming. So I think it's a very good moment in history as far as Asia is concerned.
So on that note, just finally, what do you think are the key takeaways from Li Qiang's speech at the Bow Wow Forum?
I think the keywords your journalist has reported, things like inclusiveness, openness, economic growth, these are the keywords for China right now. I think the message has been very consistent that China is going to continue its open door policy. It's going to, this year we're going to have, above 5%. I think it's not going to be around 5% anymore. It's going to be above 5% GDP growth. And every percentage point of growth in China offers huge amounts of opportunities for countries that trade with China, particularly in Southeast Asia. So these are all good messages, good good things to know. And I think the last 3 years have been very, very difficult for China. And I think at this moment, I cannot think of a better time, ever since the breakout of the pandemic. And I think moving forward, it should be all smooth sailing.
All right, John Gong, thank you very much for your time, Professor of Economics at the University of International Business and Economics in Beijing.
Thank you.